What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing my mock draft 2.1 with trades. So 2.0 dropped yesterday. That's the one without trades because it's fun to be put in different scenarios each week, and by being able to have a lot of trades, it changes up the draft entirely. This is going to be 2 rounds split into 2 different days. So yes, there are ramifications of the trades of this one. So if you are new, feel free to stick around. I'm going to be doing this every single week. And fingers crossed, I actually might be getting off work on Monday night. So we're going to be even getting more awesome content. And as soon as 2023 tape starts dropping, we're going to be kicking back up with the tape studies, because this year I wanted to make sure I wanted to get 100% down with the tape studies before we start launching into them. So again, feel free to join the Discord. It's free. 700 people there. Join it. It's awesome. Sponsor of the show, Olipop. Here you go, ASMR. Voila. This is their brand new ginger ale flavor. Sponsor of the show. Not really. I mean, they are a sponsor of the show, but use code Hail Mary if you guys like that type of stuff. 15% off, and you get to pay me 15%. Underdog Fantasy as well. Use code Hail Mary. You get to match up to $10 to up to $100 when you sign up for free based on your first deposit. So also helps out your boy there. Let's get right into this. This draft order is created due to the line, which is a conglomeration of all the sports books and ranks them pretty much 1 to 32. Pretty straightforward. So interestingly enough, we have 2 teams that take up the top 4. Again, this is based on the line. Honestly, just because I love y'all, I'm just going to bring it in so that you guys see that I'm not a complete moron. So there we go. It is based on the line. So y'all can always check this out as well. Let's get right back into the content, though, starting off with the number 1 overall selection. So we have the Cardinals here. And again, with all the stuff going on with Kyler Murray, his contract, and the fact that, honestly, he is a very good quarterback. I don't necessarily believe he's the best leader, but there's a lot worse problems there in Arizona besides the quarterback issue at the moment. And this is a great opportunity to continue developing the team. You have weak spots on the defensive interior, for example, in the secondary, and on the offensive line. And there's just a lot of holes that this team still needs to fill. And creating quarterback drama and sucking more cash out of the team that you really have, not the way to do it. And you're not going to create a good momentum for your organization by doing that. Also, I think you can negotiate with Caleb Williams to come into the NFL draft by saying, hey, we're going to get multiple first-round picks if you come in, so let's talk about it. So teams that I think could move up to this position, I would love to see Sean Payton with a mobile quarterback once again, even though I don't really think that they're in a position to do so. I think this is going to be a massive trade. I do think the Bears could be in the market for it, but because I've done that the past 2 non-trades mocks, I want to be open to another team moving up. One of those teams is the Minnesota Vikings, but they have so many issues. They have way too many issues. Raiders, they could be an organization that's saying, hey, we are primed to absolutely gut everything and start over. I love Aiden O'Connell, though. It's a tough spot because of the fact there aren't really many teams that would be in the mood to move up at this point. So maybe we'll just do the Bears. I think that's just the smart thing to do. Cardinals don't lose out on any value here. It will take the 2nd round pick, maybe the 1st or 2nd next year. Maybe this is how we'll structure it. We'll toss in a 2026 first round pick. It'll be a 1, a 2, 2, and then a 2026 round pick. So there you go. Feel free to toss it in. This is the only one that will be affecting this mock draft. So again, don't get caught up on all the other shit that's going on. Like maybe they're like, hey, Cardinals, could you toss in this? We'll toss in like a 2026 second as well. Who knows? Who cares? It's not going to affect this mock draft. So we are going to force that trade through. The Bears move up to 1 to select Caleb Williams. So somebody got really ticked off when I talked about how Caleb Williams and Justin Fields operate in similar offenses. Now, I'm not saying they are similar in talent level. I think, to be fair, Justin Fields, arm talent-wise, can get up there. We've seen him throw like 65-yard dots, right? The talent we all know is there. It's the processing that just it never clicked. At Ohio State, he spent way too long before he forced reads, or he just took way too long and has not sped up that processing, and his dropbacks are extremely slow too. So I think Caleb Williams has that same playmaking ability, same arm talent, but here, that's the difference. He is just so smart, and he can just pick apart defenses because he processes really quickly, and he's able to make plays by himself. He doesn't really need Cliff Kingsbury. It's not a Cliff Kingsbury offense that is making Caleb Williams as spectacular as he is. Like Caleb Williams, you will see he is manipulating the play during the play. He's manipulating the offensive line. He's doing that by himself. So I'm praying to God gets out, but we'll see what happens. I think Caleb Williams is a great way to start. We all know not the guy, Justin Fields, at this point. He needs to go to a spot where he can sit and develop. I think his future is brighter than Zach Wilson, absolutely, because he has all those physical traits. It's the speeding up of the mental process of the game, and it just hasn't happened. 3 years, you need to be clicking, and I'm excited for him to prove me wrong if he does, but he didn't. So starting out similarly to my last mock draft as well, we got Marvin Harrison Jr. here, wide receiver 1, still kind of being a big issue. And best way to give Kyler Murray some extra love is by giving him one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver to come out of college. So amazing player, highest graded wide receiver I've ever graded. But again, we kind of expected that for one. Number 2, I'm pretty new to the game. I don't have a billion years of grades. Studied Jamar Chase. That was not when I had an analytical scale. So I've switched from qualitative to quantitative data to back up my beliefs. And Marvin Harrison right now is the creme de la creme. At pick number 3, I do think this could be a trade back spot, but I just talked about it earlier. If teams aren't going to trade up to 1 for Caleb, they're not going to trade to 3 for Drake May. Just got to call it out as it is. So I do think this pick has, unfortunately, a little too much value for a lot of teams. Now, I could see a squad that is looking for maybe an offensive tackle. Now, of course, the Titans have moved pretty far down, but like back when it was Titans and Colts, or Titans and Bears example, battling it out for maybe an offensive tackle, then that was more of a discussion for a move up. I don't see any teams in here. The Raiders will look for a right tackle. Don't really have one of those elite ones on the board. And, they're looking for a corner. They could try to move up, but that's expensive for a corner. And you're still going to get a top tier one at this spot. I don't see the value for many teams moving up here. Because remember, to trade back, a team has to be willing to pay the price to trade up. So I don't think you're going to be in a bad spot necessarily when you get Marvin Harrison Jr. I know a lot of people are trying to clamor for Brock Bowers here. I love it. I love the idea, but you got Trey McBride. Zach Ertz will be retiring eventually, but Trey McBride was looked at as a fringe first-round talent. Of course, you got Jerzon Newton in here, but I'm going to start it out the way I did last time, and that's going to be with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I do think cornerback and wide receiver, 2 of the most valuable positions in the NFL to get right. Kool-Aid is one of the best corners I've ever studied, especially for a system that Gannon runs. I do think that he will be there because they are awkwardly extremely competitive, even with Josh Dobbs. And that's something I really like. I don't like the fact that his halftime adjustments are not very good, but that's also something he's brand new to the coaching position. His initial game plans are working very well. So honestly, I'm giving a lot of kudos to Gannon, who, I've shit on quite a bit myself, so I'll take it on the chin right there. But he is far superior than what I expected. But yeah, again, for a trade up, you have to have the value there. So at pick number 4, there's one corner left. There's one. The Raiders could certainly be in that market to try to move up and snag that corner. I'm going to change it up because I've always gone that corner route for the Raiders. I'm going to say no teams are really dying to move up and take a massive hit to their draft capital for it. And yes, we are going to be seeing quarterbacks fall. There's a lot of them. It's called supply and demand for a reason. Caleb is the one can't miss prospect. Most of these other of course, yes, can't miss prospects have missed before. I get it. But if you think that you're not going to miss, quarterback's the most valuable position. So go after it. But at this spot, there's just not another QB that's going to be available. Edge rusher is probably the position I am going to target here, but I want to see if a team might be in the mood for Brock Bowers, right? There's not many tight ends in this class that can come remotely close. I don't know if there's many tight ends ever that can come remotely close to the value of a Brock Bowers. And I mean, I'm looking at a team like the Giants here. This could be a great spot for them. When I'm thinking about the Bears, I want to get an edge rusher. I want to look maybe at an offensive tackle. I don't think Braxton Jones is that bad. Again, people are trying to blame the offensive line for Justin Fields' processing errors. They have some issues for sure, but let's not devote or delegate the blame to the offensive line. There's a little bit there for both of them. So I think this is a great opportunity for a team like the Giants that are just really needing a little bit of excitement to get going. Darren Waller, it can still play. He can still play. He's still going to be a great asset. Brock Bowers can be a straight up wide receiver, and he's going to be awesome. The thing is, you're getting long-term insurance that you're going to get a super weapon. This team's been looking for an X-build wide receiver in the first place. This is a great opportunity to do so, and the Bears are trying to look to move out. So this is a good idea for them. So for this trade package, since the Bears did lose their second-round pick, I'm looking at the Giants right now. Offensive line is a potential concern. Evan Neal has not developed as a right tackle. Again, we all loved him as a left tackle. Not everybody can just switch to a right tackle position again. So he still probably has a very bright future. Maybe not on the Giants as a right tackle, though. I hate to say it. But looking at other positions the Giants should target, I'm looking primarily at that wide receiver spot. And I think that more time and chemistry will make the Giants better. You saw in that second half, that adjustment, they performed exponentially better. So when you light a fire under their ass after 90 minutes of complete crap, they showed that they can do something, right? You have a really good D line. You've never valued the linebacker spot the way you should. The DBs are developing, and you have the talent there. The offensive line, just discussed that. But Saquon, hopefully he stays healthy. I know luckily that's a sprained ankle. I thought he fractured it. But then the receiving core is the big issue here. So this is a great way to kind of get a 2-for-1. I don't think it'll only take a second-round pick. Maybe it'll take a future second. That's something y'all can debate on for sure. But what I do know is that I am going to feel happy as a Giants fan moving up and selecting Brock Bowers out of Georgia, because he's not going to just be a tight end. He's going to be a guy who lines up in the slot. You can line him up out wide, and he's going to be a really big asset in the run game. I'm forgetting whether Darren Waller actually is that good as a blocker, and I don't believe he's necessarily known to be an asset in the run game, because I'm thinking about how he's played this year. Brock Bowers is one of the best blocking tight ends I've ever studied. It's weird, but he is unbelievable. You are getting a massive asset there in Brock Bowers. At pick number 5, this is going to be Kalen King out of Penn State. That secondary needs the help. Pick number 6. So I just talked about it. The positions I want to target for this team are defensive interior and right tackle. That's not valuable enough at this spot. And there are star left tackles on the board. I don't think the Patriots are a team that necessarily wants to leverage their capital to move up. And there are good quarterbacks on the board. Now I could see a team like Tampa being like, hey, we want to get a longer term insurance plan, but they can also sit there and be happy, right? They don't need to move up and select Drake May, but I don't think it's a bad idea either. Like, it genuinely wouldn't be a bad idea at this point for them to move up and select Drake May. It's a much shorter range of a trade in terms of the value differential. And the Raiders, again, looking at defensive interior, looking at right tackle, those are both going to be there at 12. I don't believe that what the Buccaneers truly need, which is, again, I love Baker. I don't believe he's going to have the value to bring this team to a championship. I love the fact that he's succeeding. He should be, because this team is a very high-level roster. They have guys everywhere. Now get them someone who has a little bit more potential. And if this doesn't happen, I'm perfectly happy with it. But for the Raiders, I do believe you guys are in a rebuild situation right now. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to give up a second for this, but maybe you could snag a future second. You guys can debate on it all you want, but I honestly want to see how frustrated I get with a Buccaneers second round pick. So this is honestly a pretty solid deal here. I love doing this triangle trade where teams invest more in the future, and I think the Raiders aren't close yet. They need some more time to develop. Tyree Wilson needs more time to develop, before they can really compete. So this way, you're getting worse capital return right now. And when your team is improved and developed, you are now going to have more capital, which is great in my opinion. So we're going to do that trade. The Buccaneers move up to select Drake May. Pick number 7, I do think offensive line could be a move here. Like, you do have Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt on the board, and I just don't think you can pass up on it. Garrett Bowles was suggested on quite a few trade offers, and the offensive line has not performed well. They haven't. I continue watching Russell Wilson get absolutely shellacked. The offensive line, like with Ryan Ramczyk being so dominant there, Taron Armstead for Sean Payton for so long, this is a necessity. So paid a lot of money for that right tackle spot with McGlinchey. We all thought that was an overpay. It's been an overpay, but this is addressing that left tackle spot because I do think Garrett Bowles might be traded away. Even if he's not, I still think Olu's worth taking a shot on. I really do. He's an awesome player. Pick number 8 for the Bears. So we traded back and we still get Jared Verse. There you go. That's how you trade. That's how you do it. You don't lose the player you get. You gain value and get the player. Pick number 9. This is going to be Joe Alt. It would have been Olu Fashanu. It would have been a great pick. But you stay in place. You still get a super high level tackle. I do know that receivers are a very valuable position for the Patriots to be able to acquire because they still need some infusion of goodies there. I love Mac Jones. Again, I had him above Trey until I got, peer pressured and putting Trey above him. But this was the situation I thought Mac would perform the best in. And especially with Bill O'Brien there, I do think their chemistry is going to improve and they're going to continue to play better and better. If you're able to compete against a Jalen Carter who's getting 7 or 8 pressures and you're still able to compete, that shows to me that they're able to continue working with Mac. This system has worked in the past with a game manager and Tom Brady. I don't think Mac is remotely close to that level, but at the same time, if you know the system works and you plug 80%, Tom Brady, the real difference was that 20%. So you plug in 80% of what Tom Brady was able to do and you build up the team around him better than you did Tom, you'd still have a chance to legitimately compete. And you have a star there in Christian Gonzalez that I was lower on, except I said for one team, the Patriots. If Bill Belichick gets his hands on Christian Gonzalez, I was like, he is going to be an all-pro. There you go. Pick number 10. Washington, I would have loved Joe Alt. That would have been a dream selection for this team. Sam Howell's looking like the QB1 that in my first year ever having quarterback grades, being the guy who I thought he was going to be. So very happy to see that quarterback position is on lock. Other positions of note, you could certainly look to boost the secondary because Chase Young up for a contract. I don't know if they have the capital to continue paying him and Sweat. Montez. I was thinking Josh Sweat for a second. I was like, nope, not right. But I do think that you should be in the market for an edge rusher. And I still think that Dallas Turner, Braylon Trice are going to be the next best guys on that list. Now, when you look at other positions, I wish Brock Bowers were on the board, to be fair. But you are looking at other edge rushers. People bring up JT Tuimoloau having a 33% win rate. It's against Western Kentucky. It's awesome. Again, good players performing against poor teams is something that you should acknowledge, not celebrate. I don't like that there's a huge celebration that Western Kentucky didn't stop 2 5-star athletes. Okay, let's pipe down for a second. But you got Dallas Turner here and Braylon Trice. Dallas Turner would be too much of a linebacker for that system. Braylon Trice would be the dude who I'd be most intrigued with, and because of that, I'm uncomfortable in this spot. You still have some very high-level players, top-tier wide receivers, and we're seeing receivers pop off, which means they might start going a little bit earlier than expected. And I'm going to look at some teams that might be in the mood for a quarterback or a wide receiver to move up. Now, the Jets could be in the mood, but I also want to highlight the value of the tackles that are still on the board. You have Amarius Mims here. Kingsley's had a pretty rough start. I ended up dropping him down to 32 on my board, 4 pressures on the year. Not the start that I really wanted him to have because when he lost 15 pounds, that was my primary concern. We still have Taliese Fuaga, who I am in love with. So the issue is the left tackle spot is very vacant. Very vacant. We already took the 2 left tackles that are off the board. The question is, can you trust Mekhi Becton to stay healthy? I don't, personally, but I also know I would be comfortable training Amarius at left tackle. So I really, especially with the Rams potentially being a team to snag some offensive line help, I really want to move up with the Jets. And again, you're really lacking the picks this year. So you're going to leverage a little bit next year. And I think that's perfectly fine for the Commanders because you guys have a lot of talent. This is just a good way to continue loading up on it. But at pick number 10, this is going to be Amarius Mims, who's been playing right tackle. But again, I would take the bet on him at left because Georgia trains all their dudes to play every damn position. Pick number 11 for the Rams, a team that's honestly proven me wrong quite a bit because of how good Stafford looks, which is awesome. Puka is doing great. We love that for him. We're not going to trade out of this spot just because of the fact that we've had a billion trades already. But I do think that you want to start to target some higher level players. And I do love the idea of Jer'Zhan Newton, who's been an absolute menace, going to a team where their success has been heavily driven on the defensive side through Aaron Donald. And Jer'Zhan Newton's unblockability is very similar. I think Leonard Taylor has a higher ceiling, but Jer'Zhan Newton has the higher floor. And this is a team that just kind of needs their guys to perform well. And if Jer'Zhan ends up being on an AD level, amazing. I don't think he will because I don't think he has the power necessary for it. But he has the finesse and the skill and the technique. So I'm going to go Jer'Zhan Newton here and pray that Aaron Donald, at least, even if he retires, sticks around to mentor this kid because that could be a massive addition to the squad. Pick number 12, I talked about it, moving down and still getting defensive interior or a right tackle. There are two options here. You technically three with Kingsley, but with Kingsley performing pretty poorly, I do believe he will probably slip to the later first. And that is going to be Taliese Fuaga, who I do believe will end up moving up the board. I do. I think people are going to start realizing it. This guy's been absolutely dominant. He has so much potential. But at the same time, I do feel like that might need to be something you address in, you might want to go Tyler Guyton later on. Like, we do have a second round pick, right? We have 38. We can move up to the late first and get Tyler Guyton. I do think this is where it's been a position that's been elusive for y'all for a long time. That's defensive interior. I want to get Leonard Taylor here and see what happens. Just get a menace on them in the middle. So Leonard Taylor, it is for the Raiders. Quick little recap. We have the Bears taking Caleb Williams at 1, Marvin Harrison and Kool-Aid to Arizona at 2 and 3. New York gets Brock Bowers at 4 with a trade up. Then Kalen King at 5 for the Colts. I'm doing this for my listeners out there, not my viewers. Drake May was traded up for by the Buccaneers at 6. Then we have Olu going to the Broncos at 7. Jared Verse back to the Bears at 8. Joe Alt to the Patriots at 9. Jets, Amarius Mims. Rams, Jer'Zhan Newton. And now Raiders at number 12 with Leonard Taylor. So at pick number 13, we moved back. We're good now. I think this is a good spot to try to take an edge rusher. It's a good time to do so. Because, again, you pretty much have KJ Henry as the one backup, and the defensive line has been what's making this team kick. So I want to go and continue that trend. I'm hoping Braylon Trice gets back on track. Again, he had over 30% pass rush win rate over the entire year last year at 270 with a club on his hand. This guy's an absolute freak. He could definitely be a massive addition to a team that highly values their defensive line. Pick number 14. So Titans have been doing a very, very solid job. I would be open. We got Shedeur Sanders still on the board. I honestly would be in the mood for a trade back at this spot because Shedeur is awesome. Again, honestly, if the Bears ended up not being able to move up to 1, I think Shedeur is a pretty cool option for them. I want to see if there's a team that would like to move up a short range for Shedeur Sanders. And there are 2 teams that I would love for that to go to. Seahawks and Falcons. And, both of them are NFC as well. I don't really know what the best move is for the Titans, if I'm going to be completely blunt. It's just not a team that I necessarily see a bunch of holes with. They know what they're doing. The quarterback is the biggest one, but I don't think many of these quarterbacks are necessarily going to be much better than what you have. I don't think it's going to be worth spending a first-round pick to get that marginal upgrade because they don't fully fit the system unless they're Bo Nix. So I am going to have a team trade up here. Let's see. We're going to debate between the Falcons, but I always go the Falcons. We're going to go the Seahawks here. I always go the Falcons to go and snag Shadur Sanders because that's like my favorite fit ever. And because the Titans, I forget what they sent their third round. Oh, for D-Hop. They're getting their third rounder back. Actually, we're going to send New Orleans third rounder to them. That is honestly a pretty high price to pay for a couple spots, but that's the QB tax, baby. We are going to be going after Shadur Sanders out of Colorado, who actually fits the system very, very well. We still have my number 3, 5, and 10 player out of my top 10 on the board. Vikings fans, I'm sorry to be blunt and boring, but y'all know this is the right move. Michael Penix Jr. He looks good in purple, so starting out, you already know that he's going to be aesthetic AF as a Minnesota Viking. But more importantly, he fits the system very well. He's going to save you probably $40 million a year. That $40 million can be reinvested in the secondary that needs a ton of help. So you're saving money, getting a pretty comparable quarterback in a system that you already know is going to work. You have the weapons, so it's not like he's going to be reducing, like he has Rome Odunze as well as Jalen McMillan. He's upgraded to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That's a pretty big jump, in my opinion. So he's getting better, and I love that. I love that. Again, I hate to be boring with the Michael Penix pick because I've been doing it forever for the Vikings, but it is the right selection. Steelers. Kenny. I mean, this could be a Bo Nix pick. I'm not going to do it just yet. It could be a Joe Milton pick. I'm not going to pull the trigger just yet, but I'm genuinely not happy with Kenny Pickett. He was my QB4 coming out in that draft, and I've been taking him in fantasy drafts. I've been saying, dude, the Steelers can make a push for the Super Bowl if Kenny is preseason Kenny, and he's not been. I don't get that because it's not like he's playing with different receivers now. The timing should still be there, and he's throwing it off target. It doesn't make sense. I don't know if there's an injury that we don't know about. That could clear up a lot. If he randomly is like, oh yeah, I've been dealing with an ankle injury, for example, then it's like, oh, okay, well, you're not able to step into throws. You're just naturally not going to be in rhythm. So I do think that there is an issue with that. Also, cheers to the sponsor. But I'm not going to pull the trigger just yet. I still think right tackle Taliesin Fuaga is probably going to be the heavy pick for me right now. Because, again, the Steelers could definitely use that right tackle spot to be filled. But defensive interior, Chris Jenkins could be just such a good fit, man. Our defense is literally the lifeblood of this team. Linebackers could still use some extra help there. DB, people tried to say Joey Porter Jr. PI'd on that play. He absolutely did, but you know what? Kiss my ass. I mean, the NFL cornerbacks do PI 24/7. He actually released at a pretty reasonable time. He didn't even hold throughout the whole rep. So, at least he's improving on that. But for the Steelers, I'm going to go Taliesin Fuaga, right tackle out of Oregon State. So I know a lot of people love Patrick Paul. I hate him. I'm just going to put it out there. I despise him as an offensive tackle prospect. So he's going to be my placeholder for Taliesin Fuaga. The Steelers draft Taliesin Fuaga out of Oregon State. Pick number 17, we're back with the Titans here. I honestly might just go after an edge rusher because the value is too damn good. Chop Robinson's been looking very nice. He's taking those steps up. Definitely is in consideration for my top 32. But again, I want to do a deeper tape study on him towards the middle of the year. But Penn State has been playing some much better teams. So versus a guy like Chris Jenkins, where they haven't played very many good offensive lines, or, for example, Ohio State with their guys because they haven't really played somebody notable. I'm going to hold off on evaluating them until I see some legitimate competition. So, again, for this team, you could look at the offensive tackle spot. I do think that's still a market that you can totally address. I do think a secondary pick might be the best move, though. Now, you could go defense interior Chris Jenkins and pair him up with Justin Simmons or Jeffrey Simmons, not Justin Simmons, and be absolutely monstrous and have the defense continue being that identity. I have been talking about Cooper DeJean because he can be a safety as well as a corner. I love that versatility. To me, that should be coveted on a team that might be looking for a safety in the long run. So that is why I'm going to be going Cooper DeJean. I do have him as a top 32 player as a safety. So I do think that would be a very nice addition for a team that has also taken Iowa safeties before. Granted, later on. Pick number 18 for Green Bay. The value of these wide receivers is just too good. Part of me wants to just take Emeka Egbuka here. I'm going to see if there's a team that wants to trade up. I'm looking at the Lions right now as a team that would be a great team to move up for one of these guys. But more importantly, I think just grabbing one more wide receiver for this team could make them legitimate Super Bowl contenders. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they're going to be moving up here. I don't think the Packers need a ton of current capital. Just looking at it, they have 2 second-round picks. Maybe they can add like this compensatory third, but you don't need to spend much more than that. Maybe you toss in like a future 5th-round pick as well. Again, none of this is going to change the draft process, but the Jaguars are going to be moving up for an amazing number 2 wide receiver in Emeka Egbuka. Keon Coleman's a great one as well. You can't go wrong. I mean, to be fair, Keon has played in Florida, so he's more used to that weather, but Ohio is nasty too. Their weather's atrocious. So for those of y'all who think I'm over-evaluating the conditions of the environment, I'm not. If you have to live in an environment you absolutely detest and you can't play very well in it because you can't handle the heat or the humidity, you're naturally not going to be as valuable. Emeka in Ohio's not great, and they play outdoors. So I do think that he might be pretty okay with the climate of Florida. Pick number 19. So Falcons, I do think QB should be on your mind. JJ McCarthy's been doing phenomenally. I think Joe Milton is a high upside quarterback. And when you have top tier weapons, I want to see someone like Joe Milton be the guy. I believe this is what I took last time, but this time it's more realistic to say Joe Milton should be in this range. I want all 22 to come out before I drop Joe, but he definitely did not have a star-studded game versus Florida. Again, the number 4 quarterback in the draft, or number 4 overall pick in the draft, and Anthony Richardson had plenty of struggles as well. Having struggles is not indicative of a player not having what it takes to be in the NFL, but it certainly gives you a reason to consider why are they failing. And I want to see a little bit more of all 22 tape before I make those assumptions. So pick number 20, we still have Keon Coleman on the board. It's just ridiculous. The wide receivers always fall, and it's just because none of these teams need wide receiver. It's just it's a weird situation. I could totally see the Bears honestly trying to move up at this spot and trying to snag a wide receiver. They can kind of use it, but Bears need more help than just that. Pick number 20, again, going the good old faithful route, defensive interior. Chris Jenkins is an excellent selection. I'm waiting to see him against top tier offensive lines. Just got to put that out there. But Chris Jenkins, still top tier player. He was tied number 1 in my interior defensive lineman rankings because I realized I did not feature that when I didn't adjust the grade for his size when I ended up making my defensive interior rankings, which you can always check all those rankings out, which they'll be coming. The new ones will be coming up eventually. They will, I promise. But at pick number 21 for the Saints, I'm going to be going Keon Coleman here. There's a lot of routes you can go, but drafting another stud receiver like Keon Coleman at this spot, way too good a value. And he pairs up very well with Chris Olave. And I think he's a good pairing with Michael Thomas too. You don't need Keon Coleman, but sometimes you just take the right value. Pick number 22. This would have been a good spot for Keon Coleman too. We have the Texans, and again, hate to be a broken record here, but Dallas Turner's on the board, and you pair him up with Will Anderson. I think they're comparable in their talent levels. Again, you sometimes have to just go best player available. Pick number 23. We still have my number 3 player on the board, but I just think with the drop issues, some teams are going to be very scared about taking Johnny Wilson. Green Bay traded back to the spot. DB certainly a concern. Talking about interior offensive line, shout out to, I forget who talked about it, but John Runyon's up for a contract. I do think Christian Haynes could be a nice addition. You're reinvesting in the offense, so that's good. You don't really need receiver because you're good at sniping value at receiver, apparently. So good for y'all. Tight end, you got multiple tight ends. You're looking at the corners. They need some help there, but I've been kind of going defense quite a bit for this team. So we're going to go Christian Haynes out of Connecticut, my number 10 overall player. I don't think they need to go this route because, again, they invest later picks in these interior guys, but Christian Haynes might just be too good to pass on. Pick number 24. speaking of a team that I unfortunately just robbed of my number 10 player because I love Christian Haynes to the Detroit Lions. Yeah, so also that's another reason to go after it if you are the Packers. I'm going to want to go after a corner one or a wide receiver one for this team. If you're not going to get a right guard, which I don't really think the right guards right at the moment, no pun intended, are that great, you could try to convert Troy Fautanu from a left tackle to a right guard. Graham Barton is a good idea, so we'll keep him on the short list of guys to look at. I think there is a significant drop-off at defensive interior as well. So it's really down to wide receiver and corner. When you're looking at it, Josh Newton's not the number one corner left on the board, but I'm looking at Johnny Wilson here, and he complements the receiving corps so damn well. And like Amon-Ra, of course, is going to be that focal point as the possession guy, but then you have that deep threat in Jamison Williams. If we're talking about Josh Reynolds being one of the highest fantasy like additions because he's getting significant target share, you need to just go after Johnny Wilson. You need a guy you can trust in the end zone. And he's going to weigh just as much as your tight end, Sam Laporta. But the contested catch ability of Johnny Wilson is ridiculous. It's the biggest enigma I've ever seen. Seeing a guy who's 6'7", 240 run routes better than Xavier Worthy, still run low 4.5s, but he has unreal, possibly some of the best, if not the best contested catch ability I've ever seen, and including the mechanics of the contested catch, keeping the ball away from the defender, knowing how to rotate your body and position yourself with good body control. But on a slant that's wide open or an in route that's wide open, he'll drop it. Mind-boggling. So maybe this dude is just one summer of jugs machines away from being the best of the best. And that's why I have him graded out as my number 3 player. Because I really could not stop watching Johnny. He is spectacular. But at number 25, I do think Cameron Kinchens would be the correct option. But at the same time, the offensive line, if you're really going to protect or invest in Joe Burrow, you got to invest in Joe Burrow. Right tackle, Tyler Guyton could be the right move. Kingsley's here too. I do think a right tackle is better value than an interior because we have some good interiors down the board. I'm looking at it. Kingsley versus Tyler, it's hard to choose between the two because Kingsley lost 15 pounds. I was really hoping that he'd maintain his power, and so far he doesn't look very comfortable in his own skin. Tyler, I'm going to go Tyler Guyton. He's 6'7", 220, or 220. That'd be ridiculous. 320 pounds, and he's more of a bull in a china shop type of guy. But now you have 2 OU tackles on your team there with Mr. Brown. But pick number 26. This also would be a team that should be in the market for a right tackle. And looking at it, I mean, you could go with Graham Barton here, but Kingsley Suamataia is worth taking at this spot because I think it's better than paying a guy like Austin Jackson to be your right tackle. Worth the investment for sure. Pick number 27. Might even just go Chop Robinson at this point. Graham Barton, not a bad idea. Another team that could have taken a right tackle, honestly. With the amount of injuries Ronnie Stanley's been taking, it just sucks. But I'm going to go back to good old faithful Kamari Lassiter to continue developing on this squad. I do think that the ability that Kamari has at his 4.2 something speed is going to be coveted on a team that definitely is looking for some upgrades in that secondary for a franchise that's been known for its secondary players. So Kamari, the athleticism is just too good to pass on. Pick number 28, Cameron Kinchens is kind of too good to pass on as well. This guy's a super stud at the safety position, so I'm not going to think too much about it. Cowboys, it's going to be offensive line with Graham Barton. Would be so good, dude. So good. And he can play center. And he can even sub in at tackle if you need him to. God, I'm taking him. I know linebacker is a big one too. But just like Graham Barton, you got to get excited about that because he's also played center too. You have pretty much 5 positions in one. And then you can put Tyler Smith out to tackle eventually and kick Graham to that left guard spot. Pick number 30, Leatu Latu certainly is in the consideration for this pick. I would try to move out, and that is a very Howie thing to do because even if you miss out, you can get someone like Princely who is up to 255 that fit that 260 plus role. I do like Leatu Latu and his potential. I don't know if he plays with enough power to justify being an Eagle. I do like Chop Robinson. I'm getting much more warm on him, so pipe down. But there are quarterbacks on the board, and I do think some teams should move up for them. Like, you do still have some really good QBs here. I think Quinn Ewers and J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix should be 3 quarterbacks worth a first-round pick. We have 3 picks left, and they're not all going. But that 5th-year contract is very, very valuable. You could even see a team like Arizona being like, hey, we can test it out. Because, I mean, hell, how many picks are you going to have? But not going to do that. Already had, like, you would have taken Caleb Williams if you want to test out a QB. But, again, team like the Raiders could always be in the market for it. I mean, hell, we're talking about right here with the freaking Saints, dude. Like, that could be a great spot for them to go. Other teams that could look for a QB, really not many. Like, really not many. That's the issue with the QBs in this class. Like, you can sit and you can wait. There's going to be some good ones that come to you. Unless you want to go for the creme de la creme. I do think the Raiders could try to move up. I think I did this in my last trade-up draft as well. Because that 5th-year contract is kind of huge. And how he likes getting his value. So, I know my Raiders fans aren't a huge fan of this. But we traded back and got Leonard Taylor. I know. Still need a lot more pieces. Oh, but Aiden O'Connell's there. God, this is a pain in the ass. Oh, I mean, I want to trade out of this spot so bad. I'm gonna show some love to Aiden O'Connell. We're gonna go layout 2, law 2. I don't think he's necessarily the Eagles' style because he's not super duper powerful, but sometimes you take a chance on somebody who has, alien length in terms of his arms. He looks like Kevin Durant out there on the field, and his movement skills are super duper unique. I don't think he's as good as the numbers suggest, but that's why I'm taking him here at number 30. At pick number 31, we finally get to take an offensive tackle. We do it. J.C. Latham has a very high upside. I just want his work ethic to improve, and I think Trent Williams could kind of bully him into that. At pick number 32, still trying to find a team to move up for a QB, and I've kind of taken it for all of the teams that kind of need it. That's the tough part. I mean, the Steelers could try to make a move up right now and just be like, hey, we'll check it out, but why? Why would you spend all that draft capital? You could just literally wait and get a top-tier quarterback. Because I have Bo Nix pretty damn high. Like, I have Bo Nix right here at 23. I love him. It's just, the value's not there. But regardless, I do think wide receivers should be on the board for the Chiefs. I'm trying to remember what I went for last time. Like, I think it was Mason Smith, defensive interior, certainly, again, on my radar for him. I always go that route, though. And, the tackles are off the board because I do think having some bookend tackles are kind of necessary. And I always talk about going Malik. And I do think Malik, based on his speed and just being really good after the catch, it just works so well. So again, I hate to be bland at the end of the draft, but Kansas City goes Malik Neighbors. It's a good pick. It's a really good pick, but I like to change things up, and that pick, it just fits too well. It does. And you get that 5th-year contract on receivers that are getting paid $20 to $30 million a year. Saves the team money in the long run. And you get to get rid of MVS even if you want to when his contract is up. So that's going to be the video. Stay tuned for round number 2 tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. See you on the far side.